Welcome back to the opening show, everyone. Nearly a quarter of online racing turnover has simply disappeared. Figures suggest it could be over 3 billion gone, just vanished into thin air up to March of this year. In the year previous to that, we're joined by Nevin Truesdale, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Jockey Club Racecourses. Morning, Nevin. I mean, the first question is a very obvious one. There are highly intelligent punters and voices on social media who have been saying for years, this is a catastrophe waiting to happen. Why has racing only seemed to have just caught up with this right now?
I think we've been aware of this for some time, Matt. If you look at what we've done around petitioning Parliament, the Westminster Hall debates, all the letters to MPs, everything we've done, warning ourselves that this was happening, this could come, because the reality is affordability checks do not work. They do not address the underlying problem. That's always been our position. All they do is drive people into the unregulated market, which is part of the reason why we've seen this significant reduction in online turnover. And by the way, it's not 3 billion. It's 3 billion versus what it might have been had it gone up with inflation. The actual number is about 1.6 billion, about 16%.
It could be 4 billion if inflation...
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. It's a very serious issue for the sport, but it's one that we have been warning about. It's one we have been conscious of, and it's one we've been lobbying very hard against. But there seems to be an ethos within our public institutions to say that regulation of these things is always a good thing. We all want to address problem gambling, but the measures need to be proportionate. They need to be properly, rationally laid out, and they need to be targeting the actual people with an issue, which is a very small proportion of people punting on racing. The problem gambling rate in racing is a bit similar to scratch cards. Okay, so racing is a very low risk gambling activity compared to other activities. And these are the sort of messages that I think racing's been trying to get across in Parliament and beyond.
We get that, but have we really done enough? I mean, if you were being really honest with me, talking off camera, would you say to me, you know what, Matt, we should have done more?
You can always do more, because there's always more people you can speak to, more arguments you can put forward, and it hasn't helped that, on the other side of the coin, there's certainly been groups lobbying against gambling in general, using, I think, information that isn't quite accurate, that has infused its way into the public discourse.
Your counter at the Gambling Commission, Martin Cruddas, blames the Gambling Commission. He has released a statement saying that it's down to the Gambling Commission. They have given us a statement, which we want to get out straight away on the show today. Always, of course, you have to give the right to reply. Yesterday's Racing Post, that was the 5th of December, carried unfair criticism of the Commission from our Chief Exec, Martin Cruddas, and NTF Chief Executive Paul Johnson, based on significant misunderstandings. Yesterday's piece featured claims we are unable to demonstrate any evidence as to the impact that the current affordability measures are having on problem gambling rates, and that we wish to introduce checks on people spending as little as £4. The 2023 White Paper proposed that these checks should occur for the highest spending customers at £1,000 net deposit within 24 hours of 2,000, or 2,000, I should say, within 90 days. That's not all, folks. Oh, no. If implemented, these checks would take place for only the highest spending customers, and the check would also be frictionless for the vast majority who undergo them. With reference to the reported assumption that non-mandated operator checks have led to reduced turnover, we would urge caution, as turnover will be impacted by a wide range of factors, such as changes in consumer spending power or product competition. Richard, the big question here is, who is right?
Well, there's a big disconnect between the Gambling Commission, and obviously I believe Martin's statement might have been coinciding with the fact they're under pressure because, you mentioned the lottery, they haven't been seen in a great light about who they gave the lottery franchise to. Just pick up on that, though, the range of factors, because the headline act, as you say, 3 billion, all affordability checks. That's not really the case. It's falling out of love with racing. The levy has been maintained by higher margins through bookmakers. Racing hasn't felt the cold winds yet, maybe as much as it will do. There are a range of factors at play here. We shouldn't be complacent that affordability checks take them away and this will be solved.
I agree with that, Richard. I mean, the affordability we've talked about, that's definitely having a significant impact. But if you look at the way in which racing has not always moved as maybe quickly as it could have done with innovating its product. So you look at what other sports have done around multi-leg bets, ACCAs, bet builders, all this sort of stuff, which have given those sports maybe more of an allure. By the way, they're down. Their numbers are down too. Yes, football's down 7%.
Point, isn't
Greyhounds are down nearly 13%. I think it's worth pointing that out. But racing's obviously down, I think, 16%. But I think it is fair to say that in racing, we could and should and will be doing more to innovate the product. And by that, I mean using more use of bet builder products, more use of data, the work we're doing with Race IQ and Ellipse and all that sort of stuff. All of that is really important in making our betting product more attractive. We can and should help ourselves here as well.
You mentioned, loss of turnover. A couple of points on that. First of all, people sitting at home saying, doesn't matter how great you make the product if I can't get on. Now, I know that's not your remit, Matt, but that's important, isn't it? Betting restrictions. The Betting Gaming Council have been a bit disingenuous in a way in suggesting that all of this affordability checks pushes stuff to the black market. Surely the same happens to account restrictions. The logic has to be the same. But also, of course, we got right onto the verge of the levy turnover being signed. The government have come back to us and say, you need to sort out your levy. How close were we on the day the election was announced?
We literally had a deal that was ready to go on the table with the Betting and Gaming Council. There was a written ministerial statement that was ready to be put on the statute book at Parliament the day before the election was called. And then because of the period that exists after an election is called, where things are suspended, that's why it didn't happen.
And
so that is what actually happened.
So it was that close. And the point I was going to make there, Matt, is symbolic, isn't it, of how racing says it wants to act together, and then on the verge of a deal that would have moved us forward, the Betting and Gaming Council in this instance saw an opportunity, self-interest. I understand they're acting, they've kicked the can down the road. And racing cannot just keep kicking the can down the road. We have to make decisions, even if they're unpalatable. And that was one we were on the verge. And
that's why we need to get those discussions going again, because the new minister, Baroness Twycross, has been very clear that she and her government want a deal to happen. So it is incumbent on us in racing and on the BGC to sit down and revisit that deal in good faith. And that's what will happen over the next few weeks.
What I found extraordinary about the Gambling Commission statement that we just read out was the fact that the figures are involved. And for me, immediately it just sparks that there is no understanding of gambling addiction, because the simple fact is, if you're betting £1 and you don't have £1, you're a gambling addict. If you bet £1 million and you don't have £1 million, you're a gambling addict. The numbers are totally irrelevant. We know this sport is funded by a very small number of big punters. They are not the gambling addicts, and yet they're the ones being hit.
And those numbers, and by the way, checks are taking place a lot less than that, but those numbers are what will catch those sort of people, which is why racing's being disproportionately affected here.
But why don't leaders like yourself and the BHA and Martin come out and directly oppose the misinformation from the anti-gambling lobby? Why don't you promote gambling as a legitimate, positive thing for people to do? Why is one of the biggest messages in the Stop Gambling campaign, you shouldn't try and make money from gambling? Why is that one of the biggest messages?
Because, well, first of all, we have been very clear that racing is a much safer form of sport in general, is a much safer form of gambling than other forms of gambling. We have been clear that the checks as they're put in are disproportionately affecting racing punters, and we have also been clear, I think, that a lot of what gambling policy is based on misinformation. The gambling survey of Great Britain, they were very clear themselves.
Where?
Well, I am now.
Right.
And Martin did the other day, and I thought I agreed with every word of what Martin said the other day. And I thought that was a fantastic statement. And the gambling survey of Great Britain, which is now infusing a lot of public policy, the Gambling Commission themselves have said that that is something that cannot and should not be relied on, and yet it's finding its way into public discourse.
We can't separate horse racing from slots now, can we? Or can we? Do you think we could still do that?
I think we have to make the case that there is a difference in the problem gambling instance of those products, yes. Whether or not that can fuse its way into legislation, into what happens, I think less likely. But if you have provisions in place to address problem gambling that are much more targeted on the actual problem gamblers themselves and what they're doing, it doesn't actually matter. Because all you say is, this person is losing X and Y in this period, let's target their activity in a certain way. That can be replace the sort of blanket checks that you've referred to, Matt, where £1,000 to one person is very different to £1,000 to another person. So these one-size-fits-all checks just do not work.
Do you think bookmakers are being fair with punters at the moment? Or do you think there is an ulterior motive going on to weed out successful punters?
I think bookmakers are responding to an environment that the Gambling Commission are setting. And I think the Gambling Commission are setting an environment that says you have to crack down in every single instance of potential problem gambling wherever you see it. And therefore, in order to maintain their licence conditions, they are being possibly overly cautious.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And, you know, if self-interest, if everyone acts in their own self-interest, we will never get anywhere. You know, appropriately enough, turkeys have to vote for Christmas on some topics, otherwise we will never go anywhere. And that's racing's challenge. It has been ever since I've been involved, and certainly over the last 5 or 10 years. Can we all pull together? We may have identified the bogeyman in the room collectively. You agreeing with Martin Cruddas about the Gambling Commission. The issue seems to be the Gambling Commission seem to think the best way of driving down problem gambling is driving down gambling.
The Gambling Commission, I think we have a Gambling Commission, Matt, and I will say this, who want to stop people gambling seamlessly. The Gambling Commission's remit is to facilitate safe gambling. But what they seem to be slipping into, and what Andrew Rood's statement shows, is that they actually want to undermine gambling as an activity. That they are in danger of slipping into an anti-gambling mode when actually what they should be doing is trying to facilitate safe gambling. There is a massive difference.
Yeah, well, just to reiterate, if you want to check out what the Gambling Commission thought about that, you can have a look back at our conversation online, or indeed just press rewind right now and have a look.
Yeah, and fair play to Nevin for coming in. We did extend offers to the BHA and the Betting and Gaming Council. They both declined to come on, but Betting and Gaming Council did give us a statement. The BGC has repeatedly warned that racing faced a double-digit decline in betting turnover as a result of the white paper measures. Urgent action is needed now to deliver a new anti-money laundering code and genuinely frictionless targeted spending checks to prevent unnecessary intrusion on the overwhelming majority of customers who bet safely and responsibly. This drop in turnover has come despite significant investment in racing by our members of £350 million a year, including 3 consecutive years of increased levy contributions, plus media rights and sponsorship deals to promote the sport. And we maintain that invitation to anyone who wishes to come on to the opening show and discuss it further.